Hi everyone. Today we're going to go over words 12 through 25 in round 3 of the Word Masters Challenge. As we go through these, it's really important that after every time I give the definition and the explanation, you pause it to write the card. We also want you to make sure you're listening to the full explanation because there might be an example that I'm giving that may help you remember it, and we don't want you to just rush as soon as you see the word. So take your time through this, pause after each word, and then collect all the information you need to for your flashcards. Your homework due Wednesday is to pause the video after each word and create a flashcard that has the word, the part of speech, a definition, and a connection. This could be a sentence, it could be an example, anything that's going to help you remember the word. And as always, my visual aids are brought to you by Google Images. The first word is compatriot, and compatriot is a noun and an adjective. The noun version means a fellow countryman or countrywoman, and the adjective means of the same country. So basically you're dealing with situations where people who are from the same country, and instantly it makes me think of, in the Olympics, the United States athletes are compatriots. They're competing as compatriots. They're going out there trying to win. And here's another picture to kind of cement that for you, the USA Olympic basketball team. They're going out there together as compatriots, competing to represent America. So compatriot, again, is a fellow countryman or countrywoman as a noun, and as an adjective, it's of the same country. The word obstinacy is very, very similar. It is a noun, but it's very similar to the adjective balky that we saw in the last video. And basically what it means is it's the state of being stubborn. So it's the state of being kind of firm in your belief and not wanting to hear other people's ideas. In a medical sense, it also means a resistance to cure, relief, or treatment. For example, if a disease is in a state of obstinacy inside a person, that means that it's not responding to treatment. It's being resistant to relief or treatment. And this idea of being stubborn is really significant with obstinacy. And to give you an image there, you may have heard the phrase before, as stubborn as a mule. And basically they say that because mules are often very stubborn. They don't want to be led places. They don't want to be told where to go. As you can see, the gentleman right here is having a hard time directing the mule. And that might help you remember the word obstinacy. So it's a state of being stubborn. The next word is crow. And crow has a bunch of different definitions. First, we'll go with the nouns. The noun is an inarticulate cry of pleasure. We've talked about this word articulate before. And articulate means, as we've said in class, to be well-spoken, easy to understand, easy to figure out what they're trying to say. Inarticulate, that prefix in at the beginning tells us this is the opposite of that. So, therefore, you can see that in at the beginning tells us right away that's kind of the opposite. So what we can assume there is that inarticulate means that it's not exactly able to understand what's happening, but it is a certain cry of pleasure. Think about like a baby's laugh. How sometimes you don't even know what they're giggling about or what sounds you're even trying to make, but you know that they're happy. The other is the characteristic cry of a rooster. So those of you who are woken up in the morning, if you're ever out in the country, that cry is actually considered a crow. The next is a verb, and it means to boast or brag, usually followed by the word over. So for instance, you may crow over your victory against a good friend in one of your upcoming in-town baseball games. Or you may crow over getting a better score than your neighbor on the last Word Masters Challenge. The other verb definition is to utter an inarticulate cry of pleasure. So like a baby does. So basically, to crow is the act of crying out or letting out an inarticulate cry of pleasure. Or it also means as a verb to boast or brag, usually followed by the word over. Mordant has a lot of different definitions and a lot of different meanings. As a noun, it means An acid or other corrosive substance. And this word corrosive looks a lot like corrode, and we saw that earlier on in Word Masters. Corrosive basically means that it is able to help deteriorate or help break down something. For example, this piece of metal here is corroded. You can tell by all the rust that's developing. It looks like it's been exposed to a mordant or some type of acid. It also means an adhesive substance, kind of like glue, for binding gold and silver to something. It's also an adjective, and as an adjective it means sarcastic or bitter. So if, for instance, your neighbor got a better quiz score than you on your last math test and you were really feeling kind of bitter about it, you may say something like, yeah, well, I'm still going to get a better grade for the term. Another example might be if you go up to someone and say, hey, nice shirt, when you're really clearly being sarcastic and being mordant and trying to poke fun at them. It also means right here burning or corrosive. So anything that is kind of acidic or is able to kind of break down something, similar to this example over here. Make sure you're pausing in between words to fill out your flashcards. Derelict is a word you've probably heard before, and as an adjective it means delinquent. And you may hear that word, you think of juvenile delinquent centers, are where basically prisons for teenagers and kids who commit crime but they're not 18 years or older. And a delinquent is basically someone who breaks the law, someone who causes trouble. And if someone is described as derelict, or stop that derelict behavior, it basically means stop being a delinquent. As a noun, it's a person who has been abandoned by society, usually someone without a permanent home. It reminds me a little bit of Muff Potter. Or a ship that has been abandoned by its crew. So here's a picture of a ship that's actually been abandoned by its crew, a derelict. And then I think we can all agree that a great example of a derelict from the books we've read, in addition to Muff Potter, is probably Huck Finn. He is the town's social pariah. He is the one that the mothers want their kids to stay away from, that everyone kind of looks down on, and the whole town's kind of abandoned Huck, despite the fact that he's growing up in a pretty tough situation. Begrudge as a verb has two different meanings. And one is to give or grant unwillingly, and the second is to envy or be jealous of someone in the possession of something. So to give or grant unwillingly, this made me think of Senator McCain when he had to give his concession speech admitting that he had lost to President Obama in the 2008 campaign. He kind of begrudgingly admitted that he would not be the next president and that he was then congratulating President Obama. But he was giving it away or granting it kind of unwillingly. And the next is to envy or be jealous of someone in the possession of something. This guy looks kind of like he's begrudged at this point. It could be that maybe he didn't get the promotion he wanted, or maybe somebody else got a job he was applying for. You may begrudge your friend for getting an award that you were both up for. Keystone is a noun, and it's something that is necessary to connect or support a number of related things. And one of the synonyms is actually another word on our list this time, which is linchpin. And to give you a visual of what a keystone is physically, if you look at this gray shaded in one right here, that is the keystone. Without that piece, everything would crumble. Everything on the archway would crumble without that piece being there to connect everything. If you want to look at it in terms of a person, a CEO or president of a company, they're kind of the linchpin or the keystone of the company. It's their job to make sure that all of the related things combined and work together. The next word is solvent, and you may have heard this word used in science. As an adjective, it's capable of being dissolved, or capable rather of dissolving. For example, water is a solvent. And the second is being able to pay all of your bills or debt. People really hope that, especially in this economy, they're able to be solvent and pay off their bills and debt in a timely manner. As a noun, it's something that solves or explains, or it's a substance that dissolves another to form a solution. And here's a visual for you on that. Water is a solvent. So you can see here, by adding water to sugar, you end up with a sugar solution. So a solvent is something that is capable of dissolving something, and it's the actual process of dissolving it. So for example, water is a solvent of sugar. Sunder as a verb means to separate or divide or to sever. When you think of sever, you may sever ties with a friend that you're no longer close with. Or to separate or divide, that's kind of as simple as you have a binder to separate or divide. And then kind of more of a nasty visual for that would be the guillotine, where at the guillotine they would use this device. It is an execution device used back during the French Revolution to sunder your head from your body, to basically to chop your head off. Parsimonious is an adjective, and it's characterized by being frugal or stingy. Now I know we know frugal from our prior list, but this word stingy is really important. It's pronounced stingy, not stingy, the GY there. And basically what it means is not that you're like smart with your money, not that you're economical. It means that you're kind of cheap and you're really unwilling to part ways with your money. Again, our boy Scrooge makes an appearance. This is actually the Disney version of Scrooge McDuck. You can see right there, he's being very careful with all of this money. And then here we have a woman who looks similarly guarded about using her money. So if you're parsimonious, it basically means that you're kind of stingy, kind of frugal, not really willing to spend a lot or help others with that money. A bore. Now, don't think of this. It's spelled differently than boring or to bore, and it's a noun, and it basically means a rude or unmannerly person. Sometimes when I get really hungry at restaurants, I get kind of crabby, and then by the time I eat, Robin says I look like kind of a bore. Maybe a little bit like this kid. So basically, a bore is a rude or unmannerly person. Almost the opposite of debonair. Remember, debonair means sophisticated. Bore is kind of the opposite of that. Lament is a verb that has two different definitions. The first is to express regret. And for those of you who are familiar or have been following baseball lately, you may know that Ozzie Guillen, the manager of the Miami Marlins, had to express lament for a few comments that he made in support of Fidel Castro, the Cuban dictator. And he had this press conference here where he expressed that lament to all the people who were offended by his comments. The second is to mourn or grieve. And when you lament something, you lament maybe the loss of a loved one, you lament a tough loss, like a championship game. I happened to be up on the seacoast near Greenland over the weekend, and I actually saw the funeral procession for the Greenland police chief who was murdered during the drug raid they had while we were on vacation. And it was really moving to see all the people that were lamenting this loss of this hero. Speaking of heroes, when you think of the word dauntless, it's an adjective, and it's an adjective that perfectly describes what a hero is. And basically it means you're not intimidated or you're fearless and bold. And I think of dauntless, the first thing I think of, here are a couple commemorative pins from 9/11, and the first thing I think of when I think of dauntless is fearless, bold. The way those people went into the building was just heroic, and we should all aspire to be so brave. So that's the word dauntless. And the last is skinflint. And skinflint is a nasty, selfish person, kind of greedy, mean, and also a miser. It's a noun, and a miser looks like miserable at the beginning right here. A miser is kind of described like an old kind of cranky person, and in this case, actually, ironically enough, when you type into Google Images, the two first images that come up are Scrooge. It's actually one of the synonyms too. Scrooge is one of the synonyms, and Mr. Burns from The Simpsons. So skinflint again is a noun, and it's a mean, selfish, nasty person, or a miser. Okay. Make sure you have your flashcards completed. Your homework due Wednesday is to pause the video after each word and create a flashcard. The quiz on Word Masters number 3, all 25 words, will be Tuesday, May 1st. So make sure all this stuff comes in done tomorrow and that you're studying these words for next Tuesday. Have a great night.